I always try to inject a little bit of myself into my games. Personality is what makes indie games special after all, and, well, being the sole developer on these projects means some part of my personality is going to find its way into my games at some point. In fact, when I look back on my previous games, I can associate a feeling I was having with each one. War Ender is anger. I was frustrated with my game dev career at the time and decided to essentially hit the reset button. Impressions is reflection. I was asking myself a lot of questions about myself and the world around me at the time. The future project is hope. Not only was I starting to feel slightly better about my game dev journey, but towards the end of development, I learned I'd have a daughter, and development would almost literally end with the birth of my child. My current project, What Hides in Dreams, would be fear. Well, what a surprise, it's a horror game. But it goes beyond the genre. My name is Lance, working under the name Infinite Level, and I'm making a psychological horror game where death leaves scars. For this devlog, I want to talk to you about injecting personal fears into my game. Fear is a pretty broad subject, and everyone has different fears. I, for instance, don't really mind spiders, where other people very much do. But you know what I do hate? Snakes. I can't do them. They freak me out. I can't even stand to look at the horrible things. Snakes straight up made some parts of that recent Indiana Jones game almost impossible for me to deal with. If you know, you know. Ugh. But as terrifying as those slithery demons are, that's not really the kind of fear I'm talking about. If it were, I would literally do what 2-Star Games did and just make No Snake Hotel. There is also existential horrors like what H.P. Lovecraft is best known for, and while the concepts of awesome forces beyond our control and our fragile, possibly accidental human existence is indeed a special kind of terrifying, that's not quite what I'm going for with What Hides in Dreams. No, this horror game is focused on the horrors of the mind. Dark thoughts, twisted desires, and emotional weaknesses make up the subject matter of What Hides in Dreams. This is the primary reason, by the way, why my game takes place in a dream. It's a pretty appropriate setting for playing with one's senses and thoughts and analyzing someone's psychological state in the process. Nothing like strange visions of meat blobs with teeth appearing in your dreams to get you overthinking and spiraling about what's going on in that head of yours. What? You guys don't have those kinds of dreams? No? Just me? Oh, okay then. Well, actually, weird nightmares have certainly influenced some of the imagery in What Hides in Dreams. I suppose in talking about the real-life fears I've experienced, creepy nightmares is a good place to start. Dreams are strange, to say the least. I wasn't really joking about having a nightmare about a fleshy teeth blob after me. That is an actual nightmare I once had. I have really fun nightmares. Mr. Teeth and Skin then is a pretty good example of lifting something directly from one of my dreams and putting it into my game, even if it's not quite one-to-one with how it actually looked. Basically, I tried to inject the idea of the dream into my game. Same goes for this tall and slender fellow here, as well as the environment he's in. Now, not everything in my game is a reference to a dream I've had. The majority of the game's content is stuff I made up for this game specifically. But I would definitely be lying if I said some of my actual dreams haven't influenced parts of this game. They're a solid source of inspiration, even if a lot of them involve me running around naked. And no, I'm not putting that in the game, just to be clear. Now, I'm not the type to think a lot about dream meanings. I'm sure there's stuff about your own mind you can learn from the weird visions that your brain makes up while you sleep, but I'm not smart enough to know where to begin with that. So instead, for additional inspiration, I turn to some of my own personal fears about, well, life. And there's plenty to pick from there even before I became a dad. I mentioned that when making War Ender, the prevailing theme was anger due to frustrations I was having with my own game dev journey, but over time we get to the future project and see more hope. But where there is hope, there is opportunity for fear. That line's not bad. I need to put that in the game somewhere. It's not lost on me that one day I may just stop doing this for one reason or another, and to be frank, that reason will very likely be not successful enough. Even though I recognize there's no shame in that, something about that thought does fill me with a sense of dread that kind of makes its way into the game at the end of the day. Game dev is the thing I devoted myself to, and has become such a part of what makes me, well, me, that the thought of not doing it just sounds wrong. But I mean, what if? I can't deny that it's tiring, and it's not exactly paying the bills, and I do want to make games full-time someday, but what if that never happens? Do I keep going like this, persistently trying to make this a thing? It's not even exclusively about money. That would certainly be nice. Just more than anything, I just don't want these creations to go completely unnoticed. What happens if I decide not enough people are seeing this game, and it's no longer worth trying? There you see, truly delightful stuff to think about as a creative. Even though it's probably not great for my mental health, it's hard to deny that thoughts like these present great opportunities for psychological horror. I mean, I'm talking about something I consider a part of my identity here. Few things are scarier than no longer being you know? But okay, I see some of you over there judging me for getting depressed about not being able to make my video games. So how about something a little more relatable? What if I'm a bad dad? Take that, but you're not silently judging me anymore. Yeah, this thought has definitely kept me awake at night more than once, as I'm sure it has for any half-decent parent. One day, I'm going to annoy my dear daughter over, I don't know, her movie tastes, and this will cause such a rift in our relationship that she'll never talk to me again. I will live the rest of my days being that dad. Scary stuff. Okay, but in all seriousness, any parent has had more than one moment where they seriously question if what they're doing is right, and that's just in regards to how to raise a child, never mind some of the really terrible stuff that can happen. But for the sake of my game and my mental well-being, I kept the line of thought largely to the fear of our relationship going bad over time. It's not made yet, but I do have an entire level planned where the prevailing theme is about the relationship of the main character and his daughter, which is pretty obviously the sort of thing I'll be thinking about for the rest of my days. But what can I say? Those kinds of thoughts make for some good psychological horror inspiration. And if you really dig into it, raising a child can naturally inspire common elements of horror. I mean, where are most babies born? In hospitals. And hospitals are pretty commonly used in horror. Match made in heaven then. Especially in Dream World, where you can pretty easily set a horror level about a father coming to terms with his relationship to his child in a hospital. It at least made sense to me. And that's just one possible direction you can take the idea, never mind all the storytelling and even monster concepts you can come up with for that. Let's do another one, this time choosing a source of inspiration that's a bit more internal and personal. I am very much an introvert, and there's been many times where I felt like that's been a hindrance, especially to my career. Sure, I can play up a character for these videos from the comfort of my own home, but if you actually met me in real life, you'd probably notice how much I want to get away from the conversation. And I promise, if that ever happens, it's not you, it's me. But let's face it, society, at least here in the States, favors the extroverts, and there's been many times where I way overthink how I can work around my introverted nature. That spiral is what led to the creation of this monster I refer to as the Silent. Every monster in my game has some kind of gimmick, and off-brand Slenderman here has arguably the gimmick most appropriate for his name. He's, well, silent. Doesn't make a sound unless you're right next to him, at which point it's probably too late for you. At least when I play, his lack of noise makes me extra cautious when going down a hall. But his gimmick is more than just a fun, delightful little quirk to make this monster stand out from the others, though it certainly helps that. It's meant to also reflect the protagonist's introversion and the way it has haunted him as it hinders his career performance and, in extreme cases, affects his relationships. All things that I personally fear happening myself, as irrational as that may be. Personal fears of mine touch nearly every part of this game, from the monster designs to the story themes. Take a look around any level and you can probably extrapolate something I personally fear in real life. Being stuck at a dead-end job. The feeling of being watched, a highly relatable one, I'm sure. Good relationships turning completely bad. Mold. I don't like sneezing. All things that bother me on some level. Injecting these personal fears into the game is why, more than any other game I've made before it, What Hides in Dreams is very much my baby. Not that the other games aren't special to me, but this one is kinda the favorite child. Oh, no, please don't cry. That's not what I meant, sweetie. You'll always be Dad's little princess. Y'all see what I mean about fearing being a bad dad? This is gonna keep me awake for days, and I'm not just talking about her crying. Well, that should hopefully get the broad idea across. There's tons of examples I could pull from to help illustrate my point, but hopefully the ones I've chosen will suffice. I suspect that I'll cover more examples of personal fears finding their way into my game when appropriate, so if you want to see more of that, then do subscribe to the channel for more devlogs like this in the future. Likes are also appreciated, and of course, you can leave a comment to discuss this topic further. Most importantly, you can wishlist What Hides in Dreams on Steam right now if you're at all interested in the game. Link is in the description below. Until next time.